Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I am kicking off another reading vlog and I am returning to one of my favourite series that I used to do all the time, which is my friends choosing my TBR. And this is a really great way for me to read outside my comfort zone, to try authors that I either haven't heard of or I might not have picked up on my own, because as much as I'm a mood reader and I will try random things here or there, I am still a creature of habit. And so sometimes I don't branch out from what I know. This is a really great series to do that because people go, oh, I want you to read these. And my goal is to read them. And unless something really dramatic happens, I typically don't DNF these books. So that's a pretty exciting part of this. So I've asked a bunch of people this year if they would like to recommend me 3 books to read for a vlog. So these videos are going to be popping up sporadically throughout the year. And this is also one of the squares on my TBR bingo board from hell, which every time I complete one of these videos and these reading challenges, I get to tick that off as a win. So it's not happening every month, but it will happen every other month or so here on the channel, and I'm very, very excited. And the first person who has picked a TBR for me this year is Julie from Keep Calm with Books and Coffee. Julie is probably one of the people I've known the longest on BookTube. We've followed each other for quite a few years now, and she is just absolutely one of the loveliest people. She tends to read a lot more fantasy than I do, but I was really excited to see what she would pick for me. And these are the 3 books that she has recommended. So the first one she recommended was Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater, which the name and the title were familiar, so I've probably heard either Julie or someone else talk about it at some point, but it just hasn't stuck in my brain. And I'm really annoyed that it didn't stick in my brain, because when I was just looking up the summary of the books, I've just done some very generic, very brief research into these 3 books. I've not looked into depth at any of them, aside from sort of just what I've heard or what I could pull from some keywords and things from summaries. This appears to be a queer paranormal romance with angels and demons. Everything about that screams me, and I have not read this book. So I'm super excited to pick this one up. It's probably going to be the first one I read because it was the one that I went, oh, this sounds so awesome. The second book is The Fiance Farce by Alexandria Bellefleur, who is an author I have been meaning to pick up. I actually have an Alexandria Bellefleur book on my physical TBR from last year that I have not read yet. So The Fiance Farce will be the first one I read. This one has been on my radar because it's a sapphic contemporary romance and I love the US cover. The UK Commonwealth cover is a very poor, pale comparison. So yes, this one will be getting read. And the last one I'm not surprised by at all, because I almost included Julie in my BookTuber's favourite books of the year, because, and this would have been the book that I picked for it, but I'd already asked her if she would recommend me 3 books for this challenge when I was choosing books for that vlog. So I just kind of held off because I figured she would include it on the list, and that is Godkiller, which is a fantasy book, and I am very, very intrigued by this one to see how I go. I have read more fantasy this year already, which is not the norm for me, so we'll see how I go. I'm going to be filming this vlog throughout the month of February, so it's not going to be consecutive because I've got a whole lot of bits and pieces happening, but I thought I would do the intro now, and I will check in with you guys when I start the first book. Hi everyone, I thought I would do a quick check-in. I have just started reading Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater. It's been 38 degrees here, which is the equivalent of about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So I haven't really felt like doing very much of anything today. Although you should have seen a clip of me putting some stuff into the slow cooker because I know I'm not going to want to cook later on. But yeah, I'm 1 chapter into Small Miracles and I really enjoy the tone of it. It's got a very fun tone to it, and it has footnotes. I do enjoy a good footnote. We'll see how I go. But essentially we have an angel who has been tasked with trying to encourage a mortal woman to sin a little bit more to, you know, have a good time with her life. That's just like the setup for the first chapter. We shall see how it goes. All right, so I'm 70% of the way through Small Miracles, and it's really funny. So I think what I forgot to say when I first checked in is that our main character, Gadriel, is a fallen guardian angel. So where they were a guardian angel of small miracles, since falling, they now just tempt people into sinning. and they are kind of being blackmailed by the head of the Guardian Angels to tempt our other main character, Holly, into sinning just a little bit because she's just a little bit too virtuous. Anyway, the whole thing is just very British and funny, and it's been a while since I read Good Omens, but it's kind of giving me that vibe. Like, I don't know how close it is to it because it's been that long since I read the book. I've just been cackling the whole time because even when Gadriel is trying to tempt characters into doing the wrong thing, half the time they end up doing something virtuous and they're just like, but why? But why? The other funny thing is, as part of the footnotes, every time Gadriel is counting up virtue or sin points, you get the tally and the breakdown and why the person has gotten or lost those points, and I think that's hilarious. And the other thing about Gadriel is that depending on how they're feeling, sometimes Gadriel appears as a woman, sometimes they appear as a man, sometimes they appear as fluffy cats, and it just depends on what they think is going to get them the best result in any given scene. And of course this is all explained away by, you know, angels don't have genders in the strict way that we would think about gender roles. So Gadriel literally turns up in a scene and people are like, but weren't you a woman the other day? No, I just woke up like this. I like just how, like, no one bats an eyelid at it. They just go, okay, and I keep moving on. Also, they somehow managed to find themselves as the school counselor at a high school dealing with 13-year-old girls' issues. That's highly entertaining. So I'm going to finish this off because I'm having a grand old time. Well, that was utterly delightful. I love that. That was really fun. And it turns out that Olivia Atwater, the author, lives in Montreal. I would have laid even money down that she might have been British because it was very British in its storytelling tone. But yeah, that was delightful. And I did really like, you know, if you'd asked me 2 years ago if I would read author's notes, it would have been very rare that I did, but now I do actually sort of start reading them to see if, particularly if they're you know, a couple of pages long, because usually that means they've got something to say. And Olivia Atwater does address the fact that, you know, Small Miracles is based very loosely off of, or draws inspiration from, Good Omens. And in writing the story, she wanted it to focus on the small disasters that happen in life rather than the big world-ending ones that happen in Good Omens, which I thought was really nice and is a good distinction between the two stories. But yeah, I mean, this was just great because not only do you have the relationship between Gadriel and Holly, but Holly is also the guardian of her 13-year-old niece who is going through quite a lot after losing her mother, and there are demons tempting people, and there are fallen angels, and there are guardian angels, and there is a lot of chocolate in this book. I would suggest possibly having chocolate on hand while you're reading it, because Gadriel's favourite way to tempt people to sin is to offer them chocolate. Anyway, this was a great way to kick off this vlog, and I will check in when I pick up the next book. Hi everyone. Please ignore stickers on my head, but we are going to read the Fiance Farce tonight because it's been a while since I ducked into this vlog. All of my vlog projects this year so far have overlapped significantly, and I only have myself to blame. So I'm going to read The Fiance Farce by Alexandria Bellefleur. I'm really excited about it. It is a sapphic contemporary romance, so yay, that'll be exciting. I feel like this week has been a blur. Monday to Wednesday for me is a massive blur kind of days. Oh my gosh. See, my brain doesn't work. It's currently Thursday and I've done my Monday to Wednesday in the classroom and meetings and whatnot. And I also went and saw Jodie McAllister last night. She was launching Here for the Right Reasons, which, hang on, this book was launched. So this actually came out earlier in the year, but a couple of us went to go see her talk about it. She signed my book. This is my favorite in the series. Like, highly recommend. If you want great Australian contemporary romance, this series is excellent, especially if you like The Bachelor. We all know that I don't like The Bachelor, but I like books. I went to the book launch with Kirsty and Bernadette last night, which meant I literally ran home. Actually, no, I didn't even run home from work. I left everything. I left all of my work bag, everything at work, and went straight to the train station, which ultimately turned out to be a bad idea, and I'll tell you why in a minute, and jumped on the train into the city, got there at like 10 minutes before the thing was supposed to start. So that was good. And then had a very early night. Once it was done, came back out, expecting to pick up some parcels in my mailroom, and got home and there were no parcels. And we have had, I think I've mentioned this before, can't remember. We've had a series of mail thefts over the last sort of 12 to 18 months from our building, including me. I've had things stolen and reported, and you know, just they haven't come back. Anyway, there was one of the residents has left a message for the person who's taken the mail, and it's highly amusing to me. But yeah, I spent last night filling in a online police report for stolen mail, 2 packages, which is rather frustrating. And yeah, when I got home tonight, I had a call. I just had to confirm the time that things were delivered yesterday, because they're getting CCTV footage and stuff from the building. So hopefully they find this person, because clearly they need some help if they're stealing other people's things. If I'd filmed this clip last night, I would have been really mad, but now I'm just really tired. I also had a presentation at work today where I had to talk about something that we've been doing for the last 12 months. And my brain, like I was good. I put together the presentation. I was presenting with another colleague, and I was totally fine until like 10 minutes before I had to present, and then I was just, my stress levels and my heart rate was up here. And it was the same with my colleague. We were talking about it afterwards, going, we were fine until like we just about walked in the door. Apparently went well. Everyone said we went well. I couldn't tell you what I said, because I'm pretty sure I didn't read my notes, because every time I started saying something, my brain was about 2 steps ahead of what I was actually physically saying at the time, which meant that I kept losing my place. So yay. Anyway, that's done. I'm going to okay. Thankfully that was this afternoon, because like I still hadn't come down from that by the time I left, and I left early today. I left just after 4, and I'm still coming down from that, and it's like 6:45. So we're gonna read, because I need to shut my brain off from reality. Anyway, that is a very long-winded intro. My vlogs these days are a lot of telling, not showing, which is really bad video etiquette, but I don't really have anything to show because I can't do anything. And I almost filmed some of the stuff last night at the book launch, but I feel really awkward because it's not a big space. The signing was on Valentine's Day, so I was in my heart dress because I wore the heart dress to work. Who am I to pass up a themed dress for work? Let's read the Fiance Farce. Hi everyone. So I am 63% into the Fiance Farce. I'm really enjoying it. It's going great so far. Very compelling read, very easy to read. Our 2 protagonists, so there's Tansy, who we start the book at, well, she's at the wedding of a cousin or a step cousin or something like that, and she doesn't get along with her family or her step family. Both her parents have passed away, so her only family left now is the step side of the family, and they are pieces of work. Anyway, she's at the wedding, and sometime in the past she's told them this fib to try and get out of family dinners, that she is dating someone, and it's obviously fake. And when pressed for details, she's given them the name that her girlfriend's name is Gemma, and she was inspired by the cover model of a romance book cover model who she stocks in her bookstore, until said cover model walks into the wedding because she is the cousin of the groom. Everyone makes this big deal about it because they're like, oh, this is the girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. And Gemma goes along with it. And she takes it a step further, and she introduces herself as Tansy's fiance, which just sets everything on fire. Because as it turns out, Gemma actually needs to get married because she's this heir to her grandfather's media empire, and the stipulation is that she inherits when she gets married. Okay, fine, that's a very popular trope. Eventually the 2 of them decide to go ahead with this. The benefit for Tansy is going to be that Gemma is going to purchase Tansy's family's bookstore, which the rights of went to the stepmother, despite the fact that Tansy is the one who works there and manages it and has done so all her life. Like it's her home. So now we've got all the politicking, because Gemma's family are also atrocious, except for Brooks, who I'm hoping really doesn't backstab anyone, because I really like his character, because he's like the modern day rake and is just, ready to watch his entire family burn by supporting Gemma and Tansy's marriage. So it's really interesting. Tansy is bisexual, so you have bi rep in here. She also has anxiety and, is careful about how much alcohol she takes in and everything with her medication. And Gemma is just this bundle of energy. She has spent most of her life being the black sheep of her family. She delights in it, and everyone underestimates her. And they don't think that she has the knowledge or the know-how to run this business. They don't even think she's graduated from college, because she did it under a different name in a different state and didn't tell anyone. I'm excited to keep reading, but I'm having a bit of a snacky snack, because a colleague and friend at work who's originally from Jordan gave me a very lovely gift today. So last year we were talking about traditional foods, and she was talking about having her family and how they have za'atar, and I was talking about saying, oh, I really enjoy it. It's something that I've tried before, and I've got a place where I can find a really nice blend, but I mean, it's obviously not made over in the Middle East. And she's like, no, we order it from Jordan all the time, and next time we order some, I'll give you some. So like, this is just a little bit. She gave me a giant bag. It nearly filled a 1 litre container. I was not expecting it. So I have Za'atar from Jordan, and it smells, oh my god, I can't even do it. It smells so good. Unfortunately, I don't have, you know, the super high quality olive oil, but I mean, look at that colour. Oh. Oh my god, that's amazing. I can't actually wait to cook with it because I know you can sprinkle it over eggs, and I think I need to get some flatbread, or I don't know, maybe I'll get wild at some point and make some flatbread, but that is honestly that is delicious. So I'm gonna keep eating my snack and, you know, finish reading the Fiance Farce. So I finished the Fiance Farce. That was wonderful and surprisingly emotional. Did get teary at one point because all of the things went down, and I'm really glad that Tansy was able to sort of rebuild her relationship with her stepmom, because quite often, like, we don't get that. We knew that we weren't going to get redemption with Gemma's family because they're just beyond. But I do love how all of that came together, because, you know, the wedding was a disaster because Gemma's cousin is just horrific. But yeah, it was lovely because, you know, it started out as an imaginary girlfriend turned fake engagement, marriage of convenience, to them actually discovering and realizing, no, we want to spend time together. We don't want it just to be a business arrangement, and we want to get to know one another. And they develop feelings, and it's real. But everything that sort of led up to the wedding, we all know it's the start of the third act. The wedding is not the point, because there's no grand gesture in that. And so the grand gesture at the end is just fantastic. Brooks, love Brooks. Brooks is hilarious. One of my favorite side characters in the entire book. Also, there is a delightful prank / revenge strategy that is kind of illegal. I don't know. It involves a little bit of B&E and glitter in air vents in a very, very expensive car. Can't quite say I've read about that happening before, but that sounds absolutely hilarious. And there's a funny insult of the Twilight variety that occurs later on in the book. I'm trying to be very vague because because I'm probably spoiling everything, but also I don't want to spoil everything. But for my first Alexandria Bellefleur book, this was a lot of fun, and this gives me hope because I own this as a physical copy. I just haven't read it yet. So that was nice to read. I'm looking forward to picking up more books by her and giving them a shot, because the dynamics in this were great. The banter and the conversation was really fun. I mean, this is a 416 page book, and I read it in 3.5 hours. Like, it's compulsively readable. I suppose that's another book done, and unsurprisingly, I have left the book that I'm most worried about until the end. So Godkiller is up next. I'm not worried that it's not going to be a good book. I'm just worried that my poor little fantasy-averse brain is not going to cope. So I will probably pick that up over the weekend. I'm not going to attempt it on a Friday night. Tomorrow night it will probably be a Saturday or a Sunday project, just so I can spend a little bit more time with it. But yeah, that's coming up shortly, and then the vlog will go live. I'll see you guys when I get started on the next book. Hi everyone, happy Saturday evening. I have just gotten home from a family event, so I am going to jump in the shower in a moment, but I thought I would just jump in and say I've started reading Godkiller by Hannah Kaner, and I am enjoying it so far. It's very intriguing. It is about a woman or a girl called Kissin, I think, and she is a god killer because when she was a child, her entire family were sacrificed to a god. She survived, and the only reason she survived is that her father made a deal with an ocean god to save her life in exchange for his. She has a prosthetic limb after losing her leg in that event and has grown up to become a god killer. And so there's groups of people or factions of people who are pro gods and are happy to have them around, and most people are not because they cause chaos. And yeah, I'm not very far in. I think I got about 10 or 12% in while I was at my parents' place this afternoon. So now I am going to quickly have a shower, get into some comfy clothes, and then I'm going to finish this book tonight. I want to keep reading, but I'm so tired. I am so tired. So I'm going to go to bed. But I am 56% of the way through Godkiller. I'm enjoying it. I'm a little bit confused because there's a lot of point of views, and I'm trying to keep track of why people are doing what they're doing, but I am enjoying it. I just keep yawning. So I think I need to go to bed. I will finish this tomorrow. So I have started reading again. I'm now 75% of the way into the book. And one of the things that has been kind of bothering me is what started the War of the Gods in this world. Because to be honest, I'm going to say the world building in here, like I'm struggling, but I don't know necessarily if that is the book's thing or a me thing, because I always struggle. You know, it's a big part of why I don't generally read a lot of fantasy anymore, because I can't track that stuff in my head. But anyway, we just got the answer because they've just gone back to Elo's old city where he, you know, was with his friend the king. He's explaining why the gods went to war, because it was old gods and wild gods and new gods going to war, which makes sense because they basically just couldn't stop themselves. I understand that. I probably needed to know that about 50% of the book earlier, just so I could wrap my head around it. Inara is quite a young character in this story, so she's only 12 years old. So she doesn't know the history. And obviously, through some events that have come about, we know that she has an immense amount of power. She's the one who has Skediseth, who is a wild god, who is attached to her. And he has caused some trouble. He's kind of my favorite character because he causes trouble. He's a wild god. That's what I expect them to do. But yes, so they're now sort of sneaking in to this place, and they've got to make a bargain with an old god at some point. Sorry, had to pause for a second to take some spring rolls out of the oven because I haven't eaten today. It's 1:45. I don't know how I survived this long as a adult human being having to look after myself, because I literally forget to eat. I've been up since 8:30 and I think I've had chocolate. One chocolate. So I'm gonna have some spring rolls and then attempt to figure out what it is that I'm going to eat for the rest of the week. But anyway, back to the book. Like, it's interesting. I think we're starting to get the sort of the romance subplot, which is between Elo and Kissen. I'm imagining Godkiller is interesting. I just want more of the gods. Like, honestly, I would just read a book about the gods going at each other. I don't know what that says about me, but there it is. So I'm going to try and finish this off, and then I will try and form some more coherent thoughts at the end of all of this. I am done with Godkiller, and I think the last quarter of the book is really excellent because it begins to deliver on sort of what everything else has been building to. So it's very much a first book in a series. I think the characters are really interesting. They all have interesting backstories, and they all have things that they've kept hidden that are going to impact the story moving forward, and already have sort of at the end. The end does leave off on a bit of a cliffhanger for reasons, and ultimately I think the story itself has a lot of promise. I can see why some people love it and why some people haven't probably rated it as highly. Do not go into it thinking that it is a fantasy romance. There is like this much of a romance subplot, but more it's just a, we think we're going to die, so we're going to have sex kind of thing initially. Which is not to say that there probably isn't a thread or an undercurrent of actual emotion attached to the two people involved in that scene, but there's not enough in the story to throw that in. It is mostly a fantasy story. So we have a Godkiller, we have a knight to a former king who was responsible for instability in the gods in this kingdom. I still can't wrap my head around the kingdom and how it works. I know there's a map, but it's not a physical book, so I can't see the map all the time to refer to it. Then you have a 12-year-old orphan who survived her family home being burnt to the ground, and she's attached to the wild god of white lies. I can't remember how much of this I've explained in other parts, but I'm just kind of trying to recap it for my own sake. And so the four of them all end up caught up, traveling together. There's a lot of traveling in this book. There's a lot of traveling in this book. And they discover sort of that their goals are kind of inextricably linked. And so they end up going back to the kingdom where the knight used to live, and it is overrun by gods who have lost followers. We find out that, you know, all of these gods, like there were the old gods who were then usurped by the new gods. You know, when people come up with new fancy things, they started fighting, which then caused a whole lot of chaos, and people get caught in the crossfire of it, and gods survive by having people who believe in them, who have shrines to them, and etc. So Skedi, who is attached to Inara, is an oddity because he doesn't have a shrine, and so technically Inara is his shrine, and so to separate them could kill them both. Inara herself has an uncanny ability when dealing with gods, to the point where I don't know, I haven't worked out if she knows what it is. Like I think there are hints that she does, or if she knows some of it, maybe not the extent of it, but none of that's given away. But she has the ability to influence gods and curses, because there are curses as well floating around. There is quite a lot of action and violence, content warnings for all of that, knife play, sword play. Also fire. There are a lot of people who die by fire and by sacrifice to gods in this book. Also drowning is at the end of the book. The way that it ends, I'm very intrigued, because look, it took me a while to really appreciate Kissen as a character. She's the first character that we're introduced to. Her family was sacrificed to a god, and she is the Godkiller. And so she's having to work through a lot of things because she's a Godkiller who hasn't killed every god that she comes into contact with. And so we slowly sort of begin to unravel her as a character throughout the book. Elo is a knight and also a baker, so he's a knight baker. I like that combination. I think that's great. And we figure out that he is very deeply loyal to his king, and he is one of those characters who tries to do the right thing. But where Kissen has a code where she won't kill humans, he will if he thinks that they're in his way. And so there's like an interesting dynamic between the two of those characters. And then you've got Inara, who's just, she is one, like Sketty is my favorite character. We get his point of view. And I like a god like that because he's entertaining. Like he's at best morally grey, at best. I don't know if I'll pick up the second book straight away. I think I want to hear more about it. I want to hear if the author is able to deliver on the promise of the premise of the ending of this book. Because if she can, then that makes it worthwhile to pick it up, right? All of our characters are suddenly questioning what they thought they knew. But if the second book is still 3/4 of these characters trying to sort out what it is that they're, you know, where they're going, then that's not something that I want to read, because we've already had that. Like, we've had the journey. Now it's actually at the point of these characters putting into plan and action the steps that they need to take in order to, you know, approach the enemy in this book. And I can't say who that is because it's a giant spoiler. And also I would still just really like a book about the gods going to war, because like it would be really fascinating, because you have gods of all sorts of things. They're like, we only kind of get mention of the ones that we need to be told about in this story. And I found them really interesting and compelling in the world. So yes, that is Godkiller and the end of this vlog. So thank you to Julie for choosing these books for me to read. It was a really interesting time, and I think it was a really nice mix because they're all very, very different books. And I think I got something out of all of them, prompted me to try something a little bit different, something that I haven't picked up. So I deeply appreciate that. I will hopefully have another one of these Friends Choose My TBR vlogs coming in the next month or so. I'm just waiting for people to get back to me with their book recommendations. I've got a partial list, so if I get the next book before the end of the month, then it could be one in March, or it could be start of April. Alternatively, in the comments of this video, if you would like to recommend a book for a future vlog, because I might even do one where it's just subscribers or commenters recommend books, feel free to leave the title of a single book in the comments that you might like to see featured. It could just be something you really, really want to hear me talk about in a reading vlog. Otherwise, if you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a ring emoji down below. I hope that wherever you're on the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.